The unlocked door wasn't about burglars. You see, it was the chilling fact that for the first time in 60 years, there was no one to notice, no one to care, no one to lock it after me. That small failure hollowed me out more than any grand grief ever could. I'm 82, and let me tell you, no one prepares you for the bureaucracy of solitude. Let me tell you what happened. It started with that door. Shaken, I went to the kitchen. My house had become a museum of absence. I was its curator. I avoided the guest room, a shrine to my daughter's visit after the funeral. The living room clock ticked so loud it felt aggressive. Arthur wasn't a void. He was 1,000 sharp reminders. His reading chair, his teaspoon balanced on the saucer. The silence wasn't empty. It was heavy. To escape it, I made a radical choice. I went to the senior social at the community center, a place I'd always thought was terribly sad. We were a table of mismatched chairs. There was Walter, 85, a former professor. His hands shook, but he corrected everyone's grammar. Marjorie, 79, only talked about her prize roses, all sold off. And Leo, 88, he just clutched a photo and stayed quiet. We did the small talk dance. It was awkward. Honestly, I was ready to leave. Then Walter fixed his faded eyes on me. He asked, "What did your husband do, Eleanor?" Just like that, the chatter cracked. That question was the first domino. I heard myself talking about Arthur's last days, the hospital indignities. Marjorie confessed her kids moved her into a manageable apartment. They took over her garden. Walter stated very calmly that he was there because he'd forgotten his stove twice last month. We weren't friends. We were witnesses. Flush with that strange warmth, I did something foolish. I said, "Come to my house for dinner." The words hung there, terrifying me. I spent a week in a panic, planning a dinner for 4 for the first time in years. I bought groceries and worried they'd expire. I chose Arthur's favorite recipe, coq au vin, and wept over the onions. Cleaning the dining room felt like archaeology. I was rehearsing for a life I'd forgotten. The night came. A knock on the door. My experiment began. It was a comedy of errors. Marjorie brought a rose that made me sneeze. Walter spilled his water explaining Roman history. Leo ate 3 helpings in silence. The chicken was dry. But listen, amidst all that clatter, we laughed. It was strained, then real. A rusty, joyous sound in my quiet house. For 2 hours, we weren't problems to be managed. Then, as we cleared, Leo asked to use the phone. He dialed. He waited. His face just fell. He'd gotten his son's voicemail. The joy shattered. Leo's confession filled the broken space. The photo was of Clara, his wife. He told us, voice raw, that his kids saw early signs. They were talking with lawyers about his options. His fear wasn't the memory loss. It was the conversation happening about him, without him. His terror stripped us bare. We just sat there. Then Marjorie reached over. She put her spotted gardener's hand over Leo's trembling one. It wasn't a fix, it was an anchor. From that fear, we made a pact. We'd be each other's call-in. Every morning by 10, a silly call, to prove we were still here. Walter, did the barbarian sack Rome today? Eleanor, is your door locked? It was a thread, a lifeline. We became a council of survival. It worked for weeks. It gave us a rhythm. Then, one Tuesday, Walter didn't answer. Marjorie called me in a panic. We broke our rule and went to his apartment. We found him on the floor. His hip was broken. He was furious, not from pain, but from pure humiliation. The paramedics talked over him. At the hospital, his daughter discussed assisted living with the doctor. Walter just stared at the wall. In that fluorescent waiting room, the three of us understood. Our pact was only a delay. The system had found us. So we didn't talk about hope. We talked paperwork. Marjorie explained reverse mortgages. I recalled Arthur's will. Leo talked power of attorney. We shared a brutal guide for the end game. The emotional fall was over. This was the calm, grim work of mapping the terrain. Walter moved to rehab. We visited, but it was different. The balance had shifted. We kept calling, but the pact changed. It was about clear-eyed navigation. Our calls became updates. I sorted my medical files. I told my daughter, no Florida. I fixed the leaky faucet. A victory was any choice they couldn't take. One Tuesday, I cleaned the guest room. I boxed my daughter's things. I didn't feel loss. I felt the space was mine again. So here's the reality. It's not just missing Arthur. It's becoming the family archivist. The call to action isn't for the young to visit more. It's for those of us on this ledge. Find your mismatched chairs. Make your pact. Talk about the dry chicken and the quiet terror. Prepare each other, because the door will be left unlocked. The only question is, who will notice? So here's the thing. That pact changed us. It wasn't just a phone call anymore. It was a reason to get dressed before 10. I'd make my tea and wait for the phone to ring. Marjorie would say, Eleanor, did you remember to eat breakfast? I'd say, Marjorie, are your imaginary roses blooming? It was silly, but it was ours. Then Walter fell. You know that. Finding him on the floor, that changed everything. The hospital waiting room was so bright, it smells like bleach and worry. We sat there, the three of us, Leo, Marjorie, and me. We didn't cry, we just sat. Then Marjorie cleared her throat. She said, my son's been sending me brochures for a place in Florida. It has a pool. I looked at her. Do you like pools? I get ear infections, she said, just like that. It was so simple. Then Leo spoke up. His voice was quiet. My daughter has my medical power of attorney papers. She filled them out. I signed them. I don't remember what they say. That sat with us for a minute. The hum of the lights was so loud. Arthur's will is in a safety deposit box, I said. The key is in my jewelry box. My daughter doesn't know which one. I'd never said that out loud. It felt like a secret. But here, it was just information. We were swapping maps. Marjorie knew about reverse mortgages. Leo knew about which lawyers in town were good with elders. I knew about probate from when Arthur's mother died. We weren't preparing for a good death. We were preparing for a managed one. And we were preparing each other. It was the most practical, unromantic thing I'd ever done, and it calmed me down. The big, scary fear became a list you could work on. We visited Walter in the rehab place. It was nice, and that was the worst part. It was so nice. The floors were shiny. Everyone spoke in cheerful voices. Walter had a roommate who watched game shows all day. Walter looked smaller. He had a remote for his bed. He hated it. They treat you like a child who can't be trusted with a blanket, he whispered to me. His daughter was there, talking to a social worker about next steps. Walter looked at the wall. I knew that look. It was the same look Leo had when he talked about the lawyers. It was the look of someone being discussed in the third person. On the drive home, Marjorie was quiet. Then she said, "I'm not going to Florida." "Good," I said. "I'm going to get a cat," she said. "A mean one that scratches furniture." Leo actually laughed. A short, dry sound. "Get two," he said. That was the shift. The defiance was gone. We weren't fighting the tide anymore. We were learning how to swim in it. Our morning calls changed. I called the bank about the safety deposit box, I'd say. "I told my son I'm keeping the car," Leo would report. "I bought washers for my leaky kitchen faucet," Marjorie announced. A victory wasn't a happy day. A victory was a day you made a choice they couldn't take from you. I came home from visiting Walter, and I went straight to the guest room. I just stood in the doorway. It had been a museum for so long. My daughter's suitcase was still in the corner. I opened it. It was just old clothes she didn't want. I started boxing them up. I didn't feel sad. I felt efficient. When I was done, the room was empty. Just a bed and a dresser. It was space. My space. For whatever time I had left in this house. I thought that would be the hardest part, but it wasn't. The hardest part was the quiet afterward. Not Arthur's quiet, a different quiet, my own quiet. That's what broke me. I sat in the empty guest room, and I waited to feel something, a memory, a ghost, a tear. Nothing came, just the empty space and my own breathing. That's when I knew. I'd boxed up the last evidence that anyone needed a room in my house. I was no longer a mother with a guest room. I was a unit of one. The finality of it was a physical ache. I went downstairs. The phone rang. It was Marjorie. "Eleanor, did you fix that shelf?" It was our new call, but my voice wouldn't work. "Eleanor?" she said again. I just started crying. hard, ugly sobs I couldn't control. I hadn't cried like that since Arthur died. "I'm coming over," she said. She and Leo showed up 20 minutes later. They didn't ask questions. Marjorie put the kettle on. Leo sat at the kitchen table, his photo of Clara face down on the linoleum. I finally got the words out. "I cleaned the room, and I don't feel anything. I should feel something. He's gone. She's gone. And I just feel empty. What's wrong with me?" Marjorie placed a mug in front of me. "Nothing's wrong," she said, her voice sharp. "You're tired. You're tired of feeling. It takes work, all that feeling. And we're old. We get tired." Leo spoke without looking up. "My Clara's been gone 12 years. I talk to her photo every day. Last week, I realized I was telling her about the grocery list, not the important things, the price of eggs." He finally looked at me. His eyes were wet. "The love isn't gone, but the audience is. You run out of things to say to a memory." That was it. That was the hardest moment, the cost. I hadn't just lost Arthur. I'd lost the person I was with him, the wife who knew his jokes, the partner who shared the grocery list. That woman was gone, too. I was someone else now, someone whose victories were washers for faucets and locked doors. "Walter's daughter signed the papers," Marjorie said flatly. "He's not coming back to his apartment. They're selling his books." We sat with that. Another one, gone from the table. The pact hadn't saved him. It hadn't saved any of us. It had just given us a little time to see it coming, to get used to the quiet. I thought of Arthur's last real day at home. He'd made a cup of tea and left the teaspoon on the saucer, balanced just so. I'd picked it up to wash it, annoyed. I wish I hadn't. I wish I'd left it there forever. That small, stupid memory hurt more than the big ones, because that was the reality. The last teaspoon, the last grocery list, the last time you close a door and know someone is on the other side. "I'm not going to fight my children anymore," Leo said, "about the lawyers, about the papers. I'm going to sit in the room with them. I'm going to make them read it to me, every word. If it's my last act, I'll be in the room." I understood then. Acceptance wasn't peace. It was exhaustion. It was choosing your last battlefield. Mine wasn't the guest room. It was this kitchen, this table. It was being the one to make the tea for as long as I could. I looked at Marjorie and Leo. We were it, the council, the witnesses. And that had to be enough. And that had to be enough. It is enough. Here's what I was wrong about. I thought the goal was to avoid the fall, to keep standing, to keep the door locked, to prove I was still capable. But the fall comes for everyone. Walter proved that. The goal isn't to avoid it. It's to decide who you want standing in the room when you're on the ground. I wanted people who saw me, not a problem. I got that. For a little while, we were that for each other. The love of your life, they prepare you for that loss in a way. The obituary, the funeral, the casseroles. But they don't prepare you for the second, quieter loss, the loss of your own context. Who are you when you're not a wife, not a mother with a guest room, not a hostess, not even a competent keeper of your own stove? You're just you, an old woman in a quiet kitchen. And that you is someone you have to introduce yourself to, very slowly, over dry chicken and spilled water. My mistake was fighting that. I treated the silence like an enemy. I treated the empty chair like a crime scene. Arthur wouldn't have wanted that. He'd have wanted me to move the damn chair if it suited me, to finally fix that shelf he always meant to get to. The greatest act of love for him now isn't weeping over his teaspoon. It's living in the house we shared, really living in it, on my terms, until I can't. That means sometimes the guest room is empty, and sometimes it means Marjorie sleeps over when her building's fire alarm goes off at midnight, grumbling about her cat on my good sofa. So here is my direct advice for anyone listening who hears their own clock ticking too loud. First, find your people. Not your lifelong friends. They're precious, but they're often in the same boat. Find the mismatched chairs, the ones in your community center, your library, your building's laundry room, the awkward ones. Start the conversation, not, "How are you?" That's a trap. Say, "My garbage disposal is making a funny noise. Does yours?" Or, "They changed the pharmacy hours again." Start with the petty bureaucracy. The shared daily indignities are the back door to the truth. Second, talk about the paperwork before the crisis. Do it over bad coffee. Make it boring. Where's your will? Who has your health care proxy? Do you understand your Medicare plan? We did this after Walter fell. It was the most unromantic, loving thing we've ever done for each other. It's not morbid. It's strategic. It keeps you in the conversation about your own life. Third, and this is the hardest one, let yourself be useless. For 60 years, my value was in what I could do: cook, clean, care, organize. Now my value to Marjorie and Leo is that I answer the phone. My value is my listening. My value is showing up. Your worth isn't in your productivity. It's in your presence. A presence that says, "I see you. You are not alone on your ledge." There is hope, but it's not the hope I wanted. It's not the hope of more time with Arthur. It's not the hope of my daughter moving back. It's the hope of a Tuesday. A Tuesday where you choose your own lunch, where you call Leo and he remembers a joke, where you visit Walter and he rolls his eyes at the too cheerful nurse, and you share that silent, subversive look. It's the hope of small agency, the hope of a manageable pain instead of a terrifying one. It's enough. It has to be, and so it is. You still have time. Maybe not years of the life you planned, but you have now. And now is long enough to make a pact. It's long enough to lock the door for each other. It's long enough to be a witness. If this quiet confession of mine has meant something to you, if you've heard your own fear or your mother's story in mine, then do something practical with that feeling. Don't just let it sit. Press subscribe. It's a small, silly gesture, like our morning calls. But it tells the algorithm, and it tells me, that this conversation matters, that the unprepared deserve a voice. Turn on notifications, too. That way, when I next sit at this table, maybe to talk about navigating hospital visits or dealing with condescending salesmen, you'll be there. We can be mismatched chairs for each other. If a part of my story resonated, press like. It's a simple lock on a door, a signal. And in the comments, I'm asking you a question. One Walter might have asked. What is one small domestic victory you've had this week? Did you fix a leak? Remember a grocery item without a list? Tell me. Let's build a ledger of small agencies. Share this, please. Not for me, but for the person you know who is trying to be brave in a too quiet house. Send it to them with a text that says, "This made me think of you." It's a way to start the conversation without the terrifying weight of, "We need to talk." And if you have a story of your own, of loss, of a pact, of a quiet rebellion against irrelevance, the link in the description is for you. It's a place to send your testimony. I read every one. We are building an archive of preparedness, one story at a time. Finally, for those who've asked, I've put together a simple, practical list, not a book, just a few typed pages, of the questions we asked each other. The paperwork before the crisis list. It's free. The link is below. No email required. Just take it. Use it over coffee with someone you trust. This is Eleanor. I'm 82. My door is locked. And for now, that's a victory.